Well, it's time now for 4CRB's Law and You program, and that means good morning and welcome to John Fradgley from the Bell Legal Group.
Yeah, good morning, Cole. Good morning, everybody. Great to be back with you for another program of the Law and You this Tuesday morning. As always, it's your opportunity to get free legal advice between now and 9:30. All I'd like you to do is get on that telephone as soon as you possibly can. 55208888 is the number. That number again, 55208888. Don't forget, if you're ringing south the Tweed River, you'll need to put 07 in front of the number. Otherwise, Tweed Heads and North, 55208888. And remember, if you're not in a position to phone, it is possible to send in questions by email. But unfortunately, unless we receive them by close of business on the Monday preceding the show, we can't really deal with them on the show because often it takes a little bit to read through them and work out what's going on, and we would not like to have silence while I'm reading an email. So if you have an email question or query, if you can get it in to us any time from today to the end of this week, it will certainly be possible to deal with it next week without any problems at all. Thank you to all the people who called in last week and made for an interesting program. Certainly many and varied topics covered last week, which was great. And, of course, that was the first of the programs that I've broadcast remotely from our offices here at Surfers Paradise, or Bundall more properly. But it all went well. The technology worked well, and let's hope that it stays the same this week. But the program, of course, is your calls. So if you have a question or a query, get on the phone right now, 55208888. While we're waiting for some calls to come through, one thing that has become very topical, particularly in my area of practice, which is estate planning, is the upsurge in people reviewing their wills and their powers of attorney. And, of course, with all this time on people's hands where they're having to sit around at home, what better time than to sit there and have a read through your will and your power of attorney and make sure that they're still up to date. I had some people in last week who were reviewing their wills after about 20 years, and they basically said that they had nothing better to do at home at the present time, so they decided to pull out their wills and powers of attorney and have a look, and my goodness, how surprised they were at how out of date those documents were. So probably some good advice held there. So if I can give you anything to take away from today's program, that is to take a look at those documents and just make sure that they're presently up to date. Just a couple of things too. Many of you listening today probably are no longer employers in the in business, but I'm sure that there would be a large number of our listeners who have children who are involved in business, or in fact even grandchildren who are involved in business. And it does pay for you to just keep abreast of some of the opportunities that are available through the government in relation to the current crisis in which we find ourselves. And, of course, one of the major ones is where you've got businesses that have staff. There's been a significant downturn in trade. Don't forget the government's JobKeeper package, which if you've got a child or a grandchild who's had a downturn of 30% or more in 1 month trading over the last 12 months, then they would be able to make an application for the JobKeeper payment, which will pay, I think it's around about $1,500 a fortnight for each employee that they're wishing to support on that. There is an upper limit on the salary of the particular employees, but nonetheless, certainly a great program for you to keep in mind if you're talking to anyone in relation to that. And, of course, for those who've actually lost their job, so if it be a child or a grandchild who's lost their job, the government does also have a separate package for them, the Job Seeker program, which I think is funded just a little bit more than the old New Start allowance, but nonetheless will certainly help out. But
John,
the program today is about questions and queries. So if you've got a question or a query, our telephone line 55208888.
And John, we have...
Cole, I believe we don't have anyone on the phone at the moment.
No, we've got three, John, and I've got Corey for you first.
If you want to be the first caller through this morning, get on that telephone straight away, 55208888. One
John,
thing that Cole did mention to me earlier was that we had some positive feedback on the comments I made last week about the criminal justice system, particularly arising out of the decision in the appeal by George Pell to the High Court. And just the reminder that there is an old adage in criminal law that it is better that 100 guilty men should go free than that one innocent person should be convicted of a crime they did not commit. And that's why the onus of proof in criminal cases, of course, is beyond reasonable doubt.
John,
a couple of other things that are happening, particularly here in Queensland at the moment. I believe that tomorrow the government in Queensland is going to introduce these very controversial changes to the tenancy laws in Queensland, and I know that many people who've got private rental properties are up in arms in relation to these changes, which are going to make it extremely difficult for landlords where tenants stop paying their rent. There was a suggestion that the tenant would not be required to provide any proof that they have that they need this relief, and that they could just simply say that they're affected by the coronavirus epidemic and therefore unable to pay their rent, and that would be it. There is some word going around which suggests that that tenants must be able to provide proof of their financial position. And, of course, we won't know until the legislation hits the Parliament, but let's hope that that is the case, because obviously to simply say that I'm not in a position to pay my rent because of the coronavirus and nothing more would be quite outrageous. But the latest that I've heard is that tenants will be able to claim the relief where they've lost 25% of their income, and they will also qualify if their rent exceeds 30% of their income. And as I mentioned earlier, the latest suggestions are that they will be required to provide proof of those finances. Landlords will no longer be able to go and inspect properties, and that's for the obvious reasons because of social distancing. However, they will be able to carry out virtual inspections of properties, and so what that would require, I would assume, would be a FaceTime call to the tenant and require them to show you through the property with their iPhone. I should imagine in the overwhelming majority of cases where there's a good relationship between landlord and tenant, that won't be a problem. But, of course, there are going to be instances where people are going to try and take advantage of this, and undoubtedly there are going to be some landlords who are going to be taken advantage of by what I hope is a minority of people who just seek to take an opportunity from any circumstance they find them in.
John, can you hear me?
Access, of course, must be given for essential repairs and maintenance, and that, of course, would be something such as a burst water pipe, which has flooded a property, things of that nature. And so that will be one benefit. But the other thing is that property owners will be prohibited from evicting tenants when their lease expires. And that's going to be made retrospective to the 29th of March. So you just need to bear that in mind if you are a landlord.
John, can you hear me? Can you hear me, John?
Yes, I can now, Cole.
Perfect, mate. We've got quite a few callers on the line for you.
All right,
and,
let's get on to it.
I'm going to introduce Corey for you first.
Okay, good morning, Corey. How are you?
Good, thank you, John. You said John?
It is, John. Yes, how are you?
Okay, I'm good, thank you. I've got a question like, are there solicitors that will look after your will and testament and sell your properties after you've passed away?
Yes, there certainly are. It's quite common for the executors under a will to engage a lawyer to do that work for you or for your estate.
Right.
And so it would not be difficult to find someone who would be able to do that for you. Do you live in Queensland or New South Wales, Corey?
No, I live in Queensland.
Okay.
We're both 82.
Right.
A daughter lives in Victoria and a son in Germany. So now with this corona, if anything happens, they can't even come over and do things. So
Yes,
that sort of woke us up a little bit. Is there also, can I also appoint a solicitor as enduring power of attorney?
Yes, you can. So you can appoint, yes, you certainly can appoint a solicitor both as the executor of your will and as your enduring power of attorney as well.
Okay.
So probably the way to do that would be that you would perhaps appoint, if your intention was, for example, to have your daughter act as the executor of your will, you might appoint your daughter but have a provision saying if she's unable or unwilling, then you appoint a solicitor to do the work, or alternatively, you might appoint your daughter and a solicitor jointly to act as executors.
Okay.
And in relation to the power of attorney, you may be able to appoint, your daughter and a solicitor as well, either jointly or severally, to be your attorneys. But that would be something to discuss with your solicitor at the time.
Okay.
Right,
so just solicitor is okay as well. I can do
certainly.
That.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
All the very best.
Bye. Bye.
And John, we now...
17 past 9. Yes, Cole. Next caller.
And we have June on the line for you.
Good morning, June. How are you today?
Oh, good, thank you.
How can I
John?
help you today?
Yes.
It is me.
I have a consumer affairs problem.
Sure.
I recently had a local businessman install solar panels on my roof, and for the first quarter of the electricity, it worked really well. I got a rebate. I didn't have to pay any. But then the next bill came in, and I got what was a normal electricity bill, and it turned out that the inverter was faulty. Now, it took him about a week or 10 days to get someone to come and check. Now, I've been waiting a few weeks. His attitude now is, well, I sent the paperwork away to Adelaide, to the people who manufactured the thing, and I'm waiting for the results. Meanwhile, I'm paying for electricity I shouldn't have to pay for. Now, I feel it's his responsibility to replace it and fight it out with the manufacturer afterwards. What are my rights in that regard?
Well, that certainly is the situation. Under the Australian consumer law, it is the person who sold you the goods that is responsible. Now, as to whether he would be obliged to reimburse you for your electricity in the current climate, that may or may not happen. But certainly, there's no question that under the Australian consumer law, it is the supplier, the person who supplied and installed the equipment for you, who has the primary responsibility. And if they fail to attend to it within a reasonable time, then you certainly have a cause of action under the Australian consumer law. Do you live in Queensland or New South Wales, June?
No, I'm local.
You're in Queensland. Okay,
yes.
So if you wanted to get a little bit more advice in relation to this, you could ring the Consumer Affairs Department in Queensland.
Yes.
Do you want their number?
Yes, please.
Have you got a pen?
Yes.
Okay, so the number is 137468.
137468.
68, yes. So give them a call and they will certainly be able to assist you further with what you need to do.
That's lovely.
All right,
thank you very much for your help.
Okay, June. All the very best. And it's 20 minutes past 9. Cole, next caller.
Yes, we have Nadine on the phone for you.
Nadine, how are you today?
Oh, hello. Hello, John. Good, yourself?
I'm very well indeed. How can I help you today?
John, what I would like to find out, a few phone numbers or a number relevant to that issue. We have neighbors who have moved in our street around 1 year and a half ago, and there is problem with them. Such as they throw the mowing on another land, all kind of problems. They jump into over the fence and this kind of thing. So, but the latest one is that they've got 2 children, and it has nothing to do with coronavirus pandemic. They scream, they shout, they have their tantrum, and of course with great respect to these parents, but they are irresponsible. They let all the neighbors being affected by all this, and they don't stop. So what I would like, so the latest incident, I asked the children, I said, please stop screaming. And I said, I will go down and I will talk to you. And when the man saw me, he was abusive. Of course, it's his style. He was abusive. And one thing he did, he took his hose and it's funny, but it wasn't funny then. And he hosed me, and I said, this is not right. He's getting physical now. Yeah, that's an insult.
That is actually assault, Nadine, and that's something that you could justifiably call the police in relation to, because hosing someone is in fact assault.
Okay.
So you could consider making a complaint to the police. Are these people your next door neighbour, or are they just in the street?
Yes, they are. They built a house and they moved around 1 year and a half ago, and so we took patience and all this, but and the majority
it's just not stopping.
But it's time to stop because they are really invaders. The invaders, yes. They took the street, and they are very rude as well.
Well, Nadine, what you may need to consider is whether you make an application under the Peace and Good Behaviour Act or under the Neighbourhood Dispute Resolution Act. What I would suggest, what part of the Gold Coast do you live, Nadine?
It's a Tambourine Mountain. So people are very quiet when things like this happen, but enough, it's enough now.
Yes. Okay, well, look, what I would suggest you do then is call the Gold Coast Community Legal Centre and Advice Bureau. Have you got a pen? I'll give you their number.
Yes, I do, John, I do.
Okay, so the number is 5532 9611.
55329611, yes?
Yes, 55329611, that's correct.
Yes.
So ring them. They have places that they visit all over the coast. I'm just not 100% sure whether they actually visit Tamborine or not, but I certainly recall that they do go to Oxenford. And I wonder, in the circumstances you have, I wonder whether it may not be best for you to ring them and sit down and have a detailed discussion with them and go through all of the options that you might have available to you, because obviously your problem is one that someone needs to get into in a little more detail than it's possible to do on this show. So if you do that, I think that would be the best outcome for you.
That's all lovely. Right, and where are they? Where are they?
They're located in Southport.
Oh, good.
So they're in Railway Street at Southport. But if you give them a call, as I say, prior to the coronavirus, they used to visit various centres on the Gold Coast.
Lovely.
So you would be able to choose the centre nearest to you and find out the days on which they're there.
Thank you so much. Thank you, John. Have a lovely day.
No trouble at all. You too, Nadine. And it's 25 minutes past 9. Cole, any more calls?
Yes, there? we have a Jack on the phone for you now.
Good morning, Jack. How are you today?
Good morning. Thank you. Thanks for taking my call. Look, as you can probably gather by now the coronavirus is causing problems everywhere. We recently, we recently booked a trip, a combined air and sea trip with Costa through the Cruise Cafe in Brisbane. And needless to say, of course, the trip was finally cancelled. But what we had done was we'd flown across to Mauritius. We managed to finally get on the ship. We stayed one night on the ship. The rumours were already flying around that the ship may cancel the trip because of this coronavirus. This is only in mid-March. And sure enough, all of a sudden they booted us off. But in our case, I mean, you can appreciate there would be hundreds of people standing in line waiting for someone to answer them. And I don't wish to sound racist, but all the service staff were Italian, and of course, the more we got frustrated, the more Italian they became. So it became very hard to get communications from anybody. But they did in front of us. They said, "If you want to cancel now, you can cancel, but you have to sign this form." And my wife and I are saying, "Oh, yeah, should we, shouldn't we? Should we wait and see?" And we're thinking, wait and see, and then what happens? So we signed the form, and they said, basically, you've got half an hour, get your passport, shoot off. Now, ever since then, we've been having a fight, well, not a fight so much, but lack of any reply from the Cruise Cafe about whether we can get a refund. I did cite them a letter which was sent to a friend of ours that said, basically, if for any reason your cruise is cancelled, we'll offer you a full refund. Now, Cruise Cafe hasn't got back to us on that. Right. I'm just wondering whether Costa, the cruise line concerned, is going to try and pull this form out, because we never got a copy of it, and say, "Oh, you signed a form that says you voluntarily left the ship."
Was the form in English or Italian?
Both.
Right. Okay.
We read the form in English.
Okay. So did you read the form, or they just simply said, if you sign this form, you'll get a full refund, so you did and left?
No, they didn't say you get a full refund. That's the thing. From what I gather, looking at the form, and I've spoken with two other couples who had to sign the same form if they wanted to get off the ship at that time. Neither of them got a copy of it at all. Right. And we're really pressured into thing. If you want to cancel now, you cancel. You sign this form and you go. And that was
right. Okay.
It.
Look, what I would suggest you do, Jack. Yeah, Jack. What I would suggest you do is give the Queensland Consumer Affairs Office a call. You live in Queensland?
Yes, I do, and that was my next step I was thinking of.
Yes. Look, I would suggest that you give them a call, and I think they may put you onto. I think it's IATA, the Travel Agents Association organisation.
Right.
But I think a first base for you would be to get in touch with Consumer Affairs in Brisbane. Do you want to take their number?
No, I've got. Oh, sorry. Yes, please. Sorry, go on.
Okay,
go ahead.
So the number is 137468.
Thank you.
But it's my understanding that where a cruise is cancelled or where travel is cancelled, then you should be entitled to a full refund. If you and I think that probably applies even in circumstances where you've had a non-refundable fare. I know that a lot of the hotels where you have that pay straight away, no refund, and you get a lower price, even they're offering credit to people. And in fact, I think many of them are offering full refunds. So I would suggest that you give Consumer Affairs a call and endeavour to speak to someone there in relation to it. I'm sure they've probably already had a number of calls from other people in your situation.
And $1 million they have.
And they'll have chapter and verse that they can give you straight away. All right, then?
All right. Look, thank you for your time. Have a good day.
Yeah, you too, Jack. All the best. Well, Cole, that's 9:30. Do we have any other callers online, or do we need to go to the news?
We do have Erica. If it's a very, very quick question, we could probably fit her in if that suits you.
Okay, Erica. Erica, how are you today?
You there,
Hello,
Erica?
Erica.
Yes, I'm here.
Yep. Erica, we've got time for a very quick query. How can I help?
It's not that quick.
Right. So this young man wants to lend $100,000 to his sister to help her with the mortgage percent interest, but to make it legal, what sort of paperwork, what should be written in the paperwork and who should sign it?
Right. Well, quite honestly, if he's lending $100,000 to his sister, he should get a lawyer to draw up the agreement. He should get a formal loan agreement. There need to be all sorts of things considered as to whether there are payments required or there are not required. He also needs to look at the security that he will have if he simply lends the money without any registered security, such as a mortgage or a second mortgage over the property. Then obviously his situation is at risk. So I would be strongly recommending that he get some legal advice and have any documentation drawn by a solicitor. $100,000 is a lot of money for anyone, and he doesn't want to risk that by just doing up some handwritten note between him and his sister.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Erica, all the very best. Well, thank you to all the people who've called in this morning to make for such an interesting program. I'll be back, of course, next week for another program of The Law and You. But as always, until then, it's goodbye and God bless.